It's easy to think that success is all about the grind, all about the constant hustle that we have, all about putting in the work. But without rest, we run the risk of undoing or damaging all the consistency that we've worked on. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode, and welcome back to my 100-day walk to consistency. Here, I'm excited that you're here because you get to join me on a journey of growth, empowerment, and self-reflection. A journey that sets us up for success in the things that we want to do in our health and our wellness. We are on day number 25. And today we're talking about rest and relaxation. We're talking about what do we do? How do we go about setting ourselves up for success without running the risk of burnout? Hey, that's what we're talking about today. Before we get into the talk, let me remind you that consistency is the key. It is the power, it is the wind beneath your sail that sets you up for success. So let's go ahead. I'll see you on the walk. So what is rest? Rest is the time that we take to disconnect and disengage that allows the body and the mind to regenerate, rejuvenate, and to come aside from the things that we do on a regular basis. It is the ability to relax, if you will, the ability to take time to say, hey, I am not in the grind right now, right? That's what we say. We're in the grind. I'm not in the grind right now, and I'm doing something that allows my mind and my body to relax. This is so important because often we get better mental clarity, we get better responses in our body, we're able to focus more, we're able to be more creative if we are taking time to rest. And often that is one of those overlooked ideas because after all, if I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to do the things I say I want to do, then I've got to be in there. I've got to be the first one on the job. I've got to be the last one to go home. I've got to be working all the time. Now, there is a place, let me hasten to say, there is a place for the grind. There's a place where you are going to have to put the time in, put the work in, a place where you're going to have to spend time at the office. You're gonna have to come in early, you're gonna have to go home late, you're gonna have to stay until you get that project done. But that is part of that process. But in the midst of that, we still have to spend time and we have to be able to relax and come aside. So why rest? Why is rest and recovery important? I'm just making sure I'm staying safe as I'm walking. Why is rest and recovery important? It's vital to maintaining consistency because you prevent burnout. That's a huge one. When we are constantly on the grind, when we're constantly in that space, then it's easy for overwhelm to take over, for us to not be able to maintain that energy that we sometimes say we want. It's easy for us to get into the space where things aren't quite working, and that's because not because we don't have the skill, but because we're fatigued. And when we're fatigued, then we're not able to apply all of our faculties to being successful. And so part of the reason why rest and relaxation and coming aside and all those things we talk about, the reason that's important is because it prevents us from getting into burnout. The other thing is that it's critical because it ensures that you have long-term success in your endeavors. One of the most amazing things for me is to watch, like a 400-yard dash or even a relay or some long distance running. And, everybody starts, and there is a guy or a gal, and they're kind of like in the middle of the whole group, right? So they're not up front, they're not leading the group, but they're kind of in the middle somewhere, and they're just kind of pacing themselves. They're running, they're not in the back, they're not in the front. And as we get to that last lap, or the second to last lap, we see them begin moving up and moving and moving and moving. And people watch, and they sometimes people are surprised because they're like, well, how did they get here? How did they get to the front? How did they get to be the second person or the third person? And then coming down that final stretch, we see them explode into a space where all of a sudden now they win the race. And the question that I always ask myself, or that I've asked often, is how did they do that? And the answer is that they did that because they paced themselves. They didn't burn out. They did not use up all of the energy in that first part of getting out of the block, right? So they were able to be consistent, and they paced themselves, and that set them up for long-term success. So often we are not successful, right? And here we're talking about consistency. So very, very on point discussion, but we don't succeed because we put all of the energy into that initial start, and then we go at 110% for the whole time. We don't take any time to relax and to rejuvenate and to regroup, and that does not set you up for success. Okay, so you've got to be able to relax and regroup. And then gotta come back this way. Trying to keep some of the folks out of the video. Okay, so I don't want them to get in. How does rest and recovery affect consistency? Well, one of the ways, and we kind of alluded to it, is that it helps to improve mental clarity. When you rest, your brain processes information better. Your brain is able to be more analytical. Your brain is able to see outside the box. You're able to have more vitality, if you will. You're more creative. I know there are times when I'm tired, when I'm fatigued, and even though I'm doing something that I know that I can do, and I've done it over and over and over again, for some reason I can't seem to get past a particular point. Have you ever been studying and you are reading something and you read it, and then you've got to read it again, and then you got to read it again, and I'm like, okay, why am I? This concept is something that I'm familiar with. Why am I having so much trouble dealing with it? I'm having trouble because I'm fatigued. And so in the process of dealing with, I think I may actually walk down this way. I'm going to go back. So in the process of, oh no, then the sun's going to be my face. Okay, I'll keep going. So in the process of dealing with fatigue, then our brain can't do what it needs to do. So rest and recovery allows us to be more clear in our mentation. Without proper rest, your ability to think clearly is impaired. One of the studies that they've done is a study on sleep deprivation. And when they did the study, what they found was the reaction time and the processing of many people who were deprived was just as impaired as people who are intoxicated. And so you know yourself, You've seen yourself sometimes when you are fatigued, when you're tired, that um, you don't think clearly. You're not able to process. And that's what happens when we get to that point where our brain is just like, okay, I can't think about this anymore, right? I'm not going to be able to process. And so our mental clarity improves when we get rest and when we're able to do recovery. Our physical health will benefit, right? And that's a big one for us right here, right? Because we're talking about 100-day to consistency. Physically, rest allows your body to rejuvenate, to repair muscles and tissues and nerves. And whether it's exercising or simply doing a task in our job description, when we are well rested, that makes things much simpler for us to be able to do. And so I don't know if you've ever been trying to do something physically when you're exhausted, like when you have not had rest, like you've stayed up nights and days, and then all of a sudden you've got to do something physically. Well, a couple of things can happen in that instance. One, you're not physically able to bring those muscles to bear. You're not physically able to do the thing you need to do. And because of that, sometimes we end up in the position where we can hurt ourselves, right? So we can overextend the muscles. We can, because those muscles are not well rested and relaxed, we can actually cause damage to those muscles. So physically we get benefit when we are rested, when we've allowed ourselves to rejuvenate, when we've allowed our bodies and our minds to replenish. And then emotionally. Now, this is a big one, and we can all identify with the time when you weren't rested and you were not the most pleasant person to be around. Okay? You may not have snapped at somebody, or you may have snapped at somebody, but you were just not, that wasn't the time to be around you. And it was because you were not rested. You were not at your best. Because emotionally, when we're not rested, then it's almost like we're on edge all the time, right? So that cortisol is out because it's a stress on the body. And the cortisol, remember, epinephrine also is out there because that's another stress hormone. And all of these hormones together will cause us to be agitated, irritated, irritable. It will impair our memory. And so all those things combined can set us up for a difficult time emotionally, right? We can be more emotionally labile, easily, like I said, easily angered, more frustrated. We are more intolerant of things that we would have been more tolerant of had we had enough rest. Okay, so emotionally, that is a big component of all the things we do. And so this kind of goes back to when I tell people that they need to do check-ins with themselves, right? So the emotional intelligence, the mindfulness that we're doing when we're checking in with how we're feeling mentally, how we're feeling emotionally, how we're feeling physically. So those are the three components that we always want to be looking at, okay? And this goes right in line with what we're just talking about. When we're well rested, there's a car just starting up. When we're well rested, then we are able to be successful and to do what we need to do in terms of our mental, physical, and in our emotional lives. Okay? And so I'm gonna come over to this side so we can get out of their way. It's a nice little area that I'm walking around. This is after work, if you are not. Okay, so how do we incorporate rest and relaxation and recovery into our routine. Perhaps the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we are prioritizing sleep. Right? So we're prioritizing sleep because sleep allows us, let's walk down this way. Sleep is the first place that rest and recovery happens. When we get adequate sleep, our body rejuvenates, our bodies, our hormones are regulated, there is rebuilding, there is incorporating of thoughts and ideas. Testosterone for men is built, or testosterone is regulated during sleep. When we get REM sleep, we're able to be more relaxed. Okay, so we recommend 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Sleep is one of the most critical components when we're dealing with rest and recovery. Because if you're not getting enough sleep, then everything else can fall apart. As I say, it's going to. Everything else can fall apart. And so you want to make sure that you are getting good rest. This allows your body and brain to recover from the day. And then you want to schedule breaks throughout the day. I know this is one that sometimes is difficult depending on where you're working, what your schedule is like. But as much as possible, you want to schedule time in between what you're doing, particularly if you're doing repetitive motions or repetitive actions or repetitive things throughout your day. That repetitiveness can have a detrimental effect and will set you up for not being able to do resting and recovery, right? So short breaks throughout the day can enhance productivity, right? A lot of companies are finding that out. And it could prevent mental fatigue. Remember, what we're saying is that if you're not rested, then you're going to have difficulty with mentation. And so if I'm scheduling breaks throughout the day where I'm taking a moment to recover, that sets me up for success. And then you want to do active recovery, right? So on days when you're not exercising intensely, engage in light exercise. So a lot of times we will have days where we're going to the gym and we're hitting it hard, right? We're lifting and we've been working on the leg day and the back day and the quads and the so forth. And some days, those light days, don't just sit around, right? Set yourself up, get some other activities that you do. You can learn yoga, learn meditation, and all of this sets you up for success because what you're doing is you're having active times where you're not as intense, but you're still doing something that sets you up for success in terms of the physical. And then you want to practice mindfulness and meditation. Practice mindfulness. What does that mean? Practicing mindfulness means that you've got to start working on how to interpret where you are, right? Emotional intelligence. Where am I? What is my body telling me? How can I how can I know what's going on within me? And in order for that to happen, you have to be mindful. Mindfulness is the ability to be still and to listen. What are you listening for? You're listening to yourself. You're listening to how your body and your mind are responding and reacting to things that are going on around you. You are listening to how you are responding to the people around you. Okay? So mindfulness is being aware of where you are in time, in space, and being able to use that during the whole process of doing emotional or in our emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is knowing where you are, how you're feeling, and the people around you, how they are, how they're feeling, and then using that for your benefit, right? Emotional intelligence. And then meditation. So meditation is the art of sitting and I was going to say still, but it's not necessarily that you're sitting still, but you are mentally taking time. You are mentally setting yourself up for success by taking time to be centered. Okay, if I had to put a word there, that's the one, right? To be centered. Now, there are lots of ways of centering yourself, and meditation is a way of doing that. So people will sit still in a quiet place. People will concentrate on their heart rate. People will concentrate on their breathing. People will try to take their minds to a particular place. I think I've mentioned to you St. Simon's Island. But all these are meditation techniques that allow us to become centered. And when we're centered, then we're able to be mindful. If there are lots of things going on in our minds, in our brains, and it's just going every which way, then mindfulness becomes more difficult because you're occupied. Just in the office today, I was talking to someone, and I was telling them that the situation that you're in, sometimes it's hard to change the situation, but you can change how you respond and how you deal with the situation and with the people that are there. Okay, so mindfulness allows us the ability to do that. And then we want to listen. All right, so this goes back. Listen to our bodies, listen to our mind, listen to what the body's telling us. Our brains and our body will tell us things. It will say, hey, you're tired. And we're like, no, I can do one more thing. Hey, you can't really process or think right now, but no, I can do one more thing. And we continue to argue. Listen to your body, because it is very adept at telling you when something is going on and when it needs to take a break. And then take a break. Right? So that's the one. How do we incorporate it? How do we practice it? Action. So once you've gone through all of this, right, the important thing is to execute, to do it. Don't sit and process and perseverate and I should do this, I know I have to rest, and you have to implement. When you have an idea and that idea is on paper, that's great. But if it's not executed, if it's not being implemented, if it's not being put to use, then it is of no benefit to you. Okay, so make sure that you are implementing those things in your life. So recovery once again, so important in all the things that we do. And if we're not careful, we can set ourselves up to not be successful, right? Let me just say that. And then we think, okay, there's something wrong with me, but it's not that there's something wrong with you, is that you just didn't create an environment that gives you the best chance and the best opportunity to be successful, right? So make sure you are doing that. And hey, you know how we do when we do this, right? So that's a great conversation. Resting, relaxing, rejuvenating, very, very important. But you know we can't leave without having a challenge. And so we're going to give you a challenge so that you have an opportunity to implement and do the things that we've been talking about. Okay, so here's your challenge. You ready for it? Right? So plan your rest and recovery. So that's going to be the challenge. Okay, so here we go. So number one, assess your current routine. So take a moment to reflect on your current routine. What is it that you do? How do you go about your day? What does your week look like? What are the tasks that you do? Are you getting enough rest? Right? So the question that you got to ask, are you getting enough rest? And we're going to be writing this down because we don't just want this in our brains, right? Are you getting enough rest? Write down how much time you spend resting and recovering. Oh yeah, we're writing this down. We're not just going to rely on our brain. Number two, I want you to prioritize sleep. That means that you've got to get enough sleep, right? So set a goal for for how much sleep you're going to get. We recommend between 7 and 9 hours. 7 and 9 hours. So for a lot of us, we're going to have to make some changes to the things we do. Okay, so prioritize sleep, set a goal about how much sleep you're going to get, and commit to getting at least 7 to 9 hours. Notice, minimum 7 to 9 hours, okay? And then schedule
time 29 minutes 48 seconds, total distance 1.0 miles, average pace 29 minutes 48 seconds per mile, split pace 29 minutes 48 seconds per mile.
So you heard my readout there. All right, so next we're going to incorporate some active breaks. So within your day, I want you to find 2 breaks that you're going to incorporate, that you're going to add to your day, right? These are rest breaks. These are not breaks to do something else. These are not breaks to get another activity done. These are not breaks to do a quick assessment of your job that you were doing. This is not what this is. This is a break where you're going to rest, okay? Where you can practice some of the things that we talked about, mindfulness and meditation. And then you're going to create a rest day plan. This is a big one. All right, create a rest day plan. So plan a day in the coming week. So we don't want this to be like, well, next year I'm going to do this. Plan a day in the next week to focus on recovery. It can be a rest day from exercise or a mental health break day. But plan a day and schedule this into your time. Right? So that is your challenge for this activity. That's your challenge for this today. Right? Day number 25. Very, very, very important, this particular thing, because it really helps us to be successful if we do this well. So make sure that you are getting good rest. Make sure you're doing all the things that you need to do to set yourself up for success. All right? So rest and recovery are not signs of weakness. Often we think that. Rest and recovery, they're necessary components to your success. If you get rest and you set time for recovery, your chances of success are much higher than if you don't do that. Hey, we're setting ourselves up for success. We're creating a new version, a more resilient version. We're creating a version of ourselves that is willing to do the work that it takes to be successful. 100 days of consistency. That's nothing to sneeze at. 100 days of consistency, 100 days of walking, 100 days of doing a thing. The neuroplasticity is developing. Those synapses, those connections are getting stronger. You are now able to wake up before your alarm clock goes off. You're able to do all the things that are necessary to set yourself up for success. You're more emotionally intelligent. You're more mindful. And now you are resting and allowing yourself to recover, because you know that those are the things that have to be done if you're going to be successful. You've got to create a space where success is the norm and it is not optional. Oh, I love that optional. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more about that, right? So it's not optional. It's a non-negotiable. These are the things we do. This is who I am. This is the story I'm creating. And this is the evidence that my brain has to now go out and find to support what I'm doing, to support the story that I've told it of who I am. I am consistent. When I'm consistent, I get confidence. When I'm confident, I show up better. When I show up better, my confidence goes up, and I set myself up for more and more success. Hey, this is great. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. And I educate, I empower, And I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. I'm happy that you joined me on this, my 100-day walk to consistency, because we're developing a stronger, more resilient version of ourselves. Before I go, I just want to remind you, the challenges that we're doing, don't let them just be something that is on the shelf, something that you are not doing, something you're not spending time going through. Take the time to get in there and work on the challenges. Each time we come, we're giving a new challenge. And make sure you're taking time to go through the workbook, because when you're done, that workbook now becomes a manual that you've created for your success. Once again, Dr. Dwain Woode, Wood with an E. I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. We'll see you on the walk for day number 26. All right, see you on the trail.